Now we're going to talk about ordering rational numbers. But first we have to know what a rational number is. A rational number is any number that can be written as a fraction. So some examples of rational numbers would be whole numbers, like the number 5, 10. These can every whole number can always be written as a fraction over 1, 5 over 1, 10 over 1. Another example would be integers, because we all know that integers are whole numbers and their opposites. -6 can be written as -6 over 1. Then we also have natural numbers. Natural numbers are your counting numbers, like 1, 2, 3, and so on. And again, these are all your whole numbers, so they can always be written as a fraction over 1. We can also write terminating decimals as fractions. An example of that would be 2/10. We would write 2/10 as 2/10. And we can also have repeating decimals. Repeating decimals can always be written as fractions over 9s. If we have one digit repeating, then it's over 1 9. 3/10 repeating, so it would be 3 over 9. 45 hundredths repeating would be 45 over 99. 2 digits repeating, 2 9s. So those are some examples of rational numbers. Any number that can be written as a fraction. So here's an example of all rational numbers. Each one of these numbers can be written as fractions. A percent can be written as a fraction over 100, and 52 hundredths and 19 hundredths are terminating decimals, and 1/4 is already a fraction. So I want to order these numbers from least to greatest. So the first thing I want to do is I want to put all of these numbers in the same format. So I want them all to be decimals, I want them all to be percents, whatever is easiest. So I notice that I can turn 37% into a decimal. Move the decimal 2 spots to the left, which then becomes 37 hundredths. I also know that 1/4 is 25 hundredths off the top of my head. So now I have all of my numbers as decimals. So I'm going to list them right underneath each other. I'm going to line up my decimals. And then I'm going to order them from least to greatest. I notice that they all have 0 in the whole numbers. So then I go to the tenths, and I look for the smallest digit in the tenths, which would be the 1 for 19 hundredths. So this would be the least. Then I stay in the tenth spot, and I look for the next smallest, which would be 25 hundredths, and then 37 hundredths, and then 52 hundredths. Okay, so now I give you another example that has some fractions, decimals, and percentages. So again, you want to look to see what would be the easiest thing to turn all of these into. So I'm going to choose to turn them all into percentages, or all into decimals. So 3/10 I know is 3/10. 29%, I move the decimal 2 spots to the left, 0.29. Then I see the fractional 11/25, and I notice that I can make a proportion out of 100. Times it by 4, times it by 4, which is 44 hundredths, which as a decimal is 44 hundredths. So now I have all of my decimals. And again, I line them up, lining up my decimals. I look at the whole numbers, they're all 0, so then I go to my tenth spot. The smallest would be 29 hundredths, the next smallest would be 3/10, and then 44 hundredths, and 74 hundredths. Now you don't always have to change them all to decimals. You could choose to change them into all fractions. You could choose to turn them into all percents. That's a personal preference. I decided to turn them all into decimals. So ordering rational numbers from least to greatest.